Our final area is written out in examples 19 and 20 and diagrams 28 through 30. And this is another great guitar key because your 1 chord is that nice big fat rich E chord. Okay? Let's look at the 2 chord. In example 19, you have the F sharp minor using the E minor form. Then your 5 chord will be the B chord using the A form. Then the 1 chord is that E with an E form. Example 20 gives you your scale. Okay, so let's do a little bit of work here. And this is where it gets crowded for me because I got big, fat, wide fingers. I'm playing the E chord, but I need more fingers free. Now, there are a couple things you can do here. You've heard me mention about density of voicings and technical ease or difficulty. First off, if I play the E chord with a traditional fingering, if you came in for guitar lessons, and probably anybody, if you go to guitar lessons, you pick up the guitar, you buy a chord book, whatever, that is how you're going to finger an E chord. It's important that the longer you play, the more you free up your brain from these shackles of fingerings. That's the best way I can describe it. So let's take this E chord and cross your 2nd and your 3rd fingers. All right, let's go back and play the E chord with your 1st, 3rd, and 4th fingers. Then cross the 3rd and 4th fingers. Now let's play the E chord with your 2nd, 3rd, and 4th fingers, so it looks like how you'd set up when you teach someone a bar chord, right? You say, okay, you just move up like that, right? Now cross your 3rd and your 4th fingers. Okay, now we just explored a lot of different fingerings, didn't we? Involving 3 different fingers. But the problem is, when you want to start putting all these fills and you want to start sounding more like a piano, is the best way I can describe it, more like a little mini orchestra where you have other lines moving, but you've got things going on solid underneath, you need more fingers. Well, short of growing some new ones, you have to change your fingerings to accommodate this. So one of the things that you might do is play the E chord with just 2 fingers. These are these jazz double stops. Now, this is where the strings being closer together is a benefit because you're pressing down 2 notes with 1 finger. Depending upon the width of the fingerboard, and I've talked about this in many of my lessons, the width of the fingerboard at the nut and wherever, the size strings you're using, the radius, the size frets, the size of your fingers, all these factors, whether they're stainless steel frets, because stainless steel frets are real slippery and the strings sort of slide out from underneath you, that might not work so well up in higher positions. Now this guitar is a 1/11/16 at the nut. I really love steel string acoustics. I don't own one that has a 1 3/4 inch width. I ought to get one, but you know, that would give me that room that I'm whining about that I don't have on this guitar. Classical guitars, 2 inches. So a fingering like this might be a bit impractical on classical guitar. Also because you got nylon strings, they're more pliable. If I'm playing on one of my guitars that I put together that has stainless steel frets and a scallop fingerboard and big 6100 frets, and I've got 9.5s on there, this is the sort of thing that's very precarious because I can hardly get a hold of the strings. I'll sometimes come in with the finger flattened or come in and grab and roll a little bit, but it's a bit tedious. So do you see that certain techniques are applicable to certain guitars and certain styles? Well, this works, but the problem is that it's technically pretty demanding and it limits how you don't have any freedom of rotation. Do you see how I can rotate my hand a little bit? What if I want to play something up here? I might lose that double stop or mute the 3rd string. A lot of things could happen. Well, let's talk about what's going on here. When you play this chord, if you look at diagram 30, you'll see you've got root, 5th root, 3rd, 5th root. Well, I don't really need to play that root on the 4th string because I've got it down here, and it's going to be occurring up here. Remember we had those open voicings? So 1, 5, 3 is really cleaner, and it's a little more manageable technically as the foundation of that's what I was doing. That also allows me to gain a little bit of distance when I need it. When I come down, see listen. That's tough for me because my fingers are so flat on the end that it's easy for me to deaden the second string. So what do I need to do? I need to roll my first finger up. What happens when I do that? Listen to the fourth string. Now I got a flat 7 there. I'm playing an E7 chord. So there's these little techniques that you could use where you might be collapsing this second finger just a touch to get that first finger. But then if you have low action, you might run into a buzz because you're partially fretting the note. Now I know this might seem like splitting hairs, but for me, especially having played the guitar as long as I have, I want to play it beyond the realm of typical guitar. More like a piano, more like a horn, more like other instruments. So these kind of fingerings and just thinking about it and trying some different fingerings will open up your brain, and it's good stuff to practice because if you just look at it at face value, okay, I got it, here's the scale, bang, I'm done, I'm going to move on to the next lesson. You're really missing all the little treasures that are in this music realm. All right, so here we have the arpeggios, we have all of the same information, and you know the drill. But you also want to expand it and see the next area so that you're not just locked into open through the 4th fret. You'd want to see the other scales up the neck and start integrating. Now, I'm not going to take video time here and demonstrate this, but your goal should be as follows. There are 2 things here. Well, 3 things, really. You want to get a theory base. You want to know what you're playing in terms of numbers and scale degrees with the letter name labels and all that business. For each chord, all these diagrams, that's an ultimate goal. Don't try and learn that in a month or in 6 months. Take your time and just stay on that course. You want to get your ears to where you hear these progressions, but the whole idea of the 2-5-1 is for you to build a foundation. I said earlier we're going to build and have some jazz progressions where we'll alter the 5 chord. Or what happens if you want to play a 1-6-2 progression? By what you've studied here, you would then quickly have 2/3 of your progression under your fingers, right? Okay, but what if we wanted to do something like this? Here I am in the key of E. I'm taking the information that's presented as a 2-5-1 and I'm playing it as follows. 1, 5 over 1, and then a 2. Do you see how you could mix and match? Or you could do this. What did I keep pumping in the bass all the way through? The 2. What should have just happened then is you saw, wow, I don't need to just learn a 2-5-1. I need to start experimenting with different bass notes, mixing and matching just the 3 chords right here and see what happens. What if I go... You then have some tools for composition, for harmonization, reharmonization, for everything, improvisation, the whole thing. So hopefully you see that this 2-5-1 is just a way to get started at getting proficient at diatonic triads on the guitar, the scale forms, the arpeggios. And we haven't done a lot of soloing. I mean, this is also just going to prepare you for soloing, because if you know these diagrams, you know your arpeggios, you know the scales, you'll be able to navigate through changes, which is one of the big stumbling blocks for a lot of people. You know, you might be solid on the minor pentatonic and be able to play a 12-bar blues with the best of them. But when you have to play through the major scale and these changes, it's a whole different realm. So I encourage you to study this. Don't try to master it before you move on, because I've got more lessons coming down the road where we're going to expand on it, like I said. More of this business maybe of taking a 2-5 and playing it a different way. It's huge. But the big secret is to know your major scales. So just endeavor to start studying the major scale and all the implications of what it contains, the chords, the arpeggios, the patterns, the fingerings on the guitar, and keep your ears open, all right? And try this stuff in different realms. You've got jam tracks that just scratch the surface as far as feels. Try different things. I was going to want to throw a polka on there or something, but I didn't get around to it. So I know that's what you guys really want, so maybe next time.